Torgarmah, son of Gomer, Armenians and Anatolians. But before we get too deep into the video, first I want to tell you guys about my social media platforms. So I have a Clubhouse account and we can actually talk to one another on it. I also host Clubhouse rooms every now and then where I might talk about history and genetics of the Middle East and Africa. I have a Twitter page, a Facebook account, and a Facebook page, as well as a Instagram, all titled The Hebrew of Israel. And what I typically do on these platforms is post upcoming videos as well as slides for my presentations. And so just be on the lookout for all of that on my social media platforms. And if you want to support me financially for the channel, you can look at my Patreon as well as my PayPal and my GoFundMe. And with all of that out of the way, let's begin with the video. There is a long-held tradition among Jews, Muslims, and Christians that Togarmah was the father of Armenians and peoples of the Caucasus, as well as Anatolian groups. From Smith's Bible Dictionary, Togarmah, a son of Gomer, of the family of Japheth, and brother of Ashkenaz and Riphath, Genesis chapter 10, verse 3, his descendants became a people engaged in agriculture, breeding horses and mules to be sold in Tyre. Ezekiel chapter 27, verse 14. They were also a military people well skilled in the use of arms. Togarmah was probably the ancient name of Armenia. ETS Bible Dictionary, Togarmah, a descendant of Japheth. Genesis chapter 10, verse 3. Supposed to have given his name to the region of Asia afterwards, called Armenia. Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 15 and 16. It was celebrated for its horses and mules, and the men of Togarmah, like the modern Armenians, were an industrious, peaceable, and trafficking people. Ezekiel chapter 27, verse 14. Easton's Bible Dictionary says, a nation which traded in horses and mules at the fairs of Tyre, Ezekiel chapter 27, verse 14, and chapter 38, verse 6, probably an Armenian or a Scythian race descendants of. This is from International Standard Bible Encyclopedia, and it says the ancient identification of their country with Torgarmah by the Armenians, though correct, is probably due to the Septuagint's transposition of G and R Torgarmah or Torgarmah, which has caused them to see therein the name of Torgarmah, father of Hayek, the founder of their race. And this is from BibleGate.com. Togarmah, the third son of Gomer, son of Japheth. His brothers were Ashkenaz and Riphath. Genesis chapter 10, verse 3, 1 Chronicles chapter 1, verse 6, Ezekiel chapter 27, verse 14, and chapter 38, verse 6. Jewish writers of the past usually wrote of the Turks as Togarmah and the Armenians as the house of Torgon. It is not difficult, therefore, to identify Togarmah as Armenia or Turkey, the people of which assert their descendancy from Torgon or the Togarmah of the Scriptures. And this is from Insight on the Scriptures, Volume 2, page 1113. Many commentators connect Togarmah with the Armenians. The Armenians themselves traditionally claim to be descendants from Hayek, son of Togarmah. Ancient Greek writers speak of the Armenians as famed for their horses and mules. So most Bible maps you look at concerning the territory of Togarmah place his descendants in Armenia / the Caucasus and Anatolia. So just type in like Genesis 10 maps or Table of Nation maps or Japheth maps or Togarmah maps, you typically see Togarmah in Asia Minor or Anatolia, as well as the south of the Caucasus. That's typically where they place Togarmah, as you can see. I have him, by the way, in boxes. So, among Armenians and groups of the Caucasus, they actually claim to descend from one of Togarmah's sons named Hayek. So, Armenian and Georgian traditions, another Togarmah, this one being the son of both Tyrus and Gomer, is mentioned by Armenian Moses of Coron and Georgian Letoni Mevaroni, who regarded Togarmah as the founder of their nation, along with other Caucasian peoples. According to Moses of Coron, History of Armenia, and to Lonti Mevaroni, medieval Georgian chronicles, Togarmos was thought to have lived in Babylon before he received the land between two seas and two mountains, i.e., the Caucasus, in his possession. He then settled near Mount Ararat and divided his land among his sons. And so he had 8 sons. I'm just going to name some of them. Hayek, son of Togarmos, inherited Mount Ararat and founded the Armenian nation. Then you have Carlotos, settled in southeast from Ararat, founder of Karlil, who united other brothers and founded the Georgian nation. And then you have Helos, settled in the eastern part of Ararat, and Caucasus, settled beyond the Caucasus region. And then there's other sons. So let's deal with Hayek. So Hayek is and forgive me for my pronunciations, but Hayek is the legendary patriarch and founder of the Armenian nation. His story is told in the History of Armenia, attributed to the Armenian historian Moses of Coron. Armand Petramian believes that the name Hayek can very visibly be derived from the Indo-European poti, master, lord, house, master of the house, and husband. One of Hayek's most famous scions, Amram, settled in eastern Armenia from the Mitanni kingdom, West Armenia, when Sargon II mentions a king of part of Armenia who bore the Armenian Indo-Iranian name Bagatindi. According to the new Christianized version of the legend, Hayek Napat, Hayek the forefather, is considered to be the son of Torgarmah Nafat, he who was one of the descendants of Japheth. In the medieval written sources, the name given to Armenia, Torgarmah Tum, House of Torgarmah, and to the Armenians, Torgarmah Agaz, the people of Torgarmah, comes from there. Moses of Coron gave Hayek's genealogy as Japhet, Gomer, and Tyrus in Torgarmah. Hayek's descendants are given as Amrasia, Ara, Amram, Amranis, Amranak, Gegham, and Haraham. Hayek was also said to be the founder of the Hayakazian dynasty. According to the accounts of Moses of Coron and Sixtus Julius Africanus, the battle occurred between the dynasty of Hayek and a Chaldean dynasty in its third generation that had control of Babylon and the remaining territory of Acadia under King Bulus, a symbolic Babylonian/Akkadian god of war, or founder of Babylon, depending on mythological tradition. The conflict is said to have happened in 2492 BCE or 2107 BCE. In Moses of Coron's account, Hayek, son of Torgarmah, had a child named Amranik while he was living in Babylon. After an arrogant titan Bel made himself king over all, Hayek immigrated to the region near Mount Ararat. Hayek relocated near Mount Ararat with an extended household of at least 300 and settled there, founding a village he named Hayestin. Bel decided to march against him with a massive force, but Hayek was warned ahead of time by Kedemos of his pending approach. He assembled his own army along the shore of Lake Van and told them that they must defeat and kill Bel or die trying to do so rather than become his slaves. And here's just a piece from the account from Moses of Quran. Hayek and his people, from the time of their forefathers, Noah and Japheth, had migrated south towards the warmer lands near Babylon, but proud Hayek refused to submit to Bel. As soon as his son Amranik was born, Hayek rose up and led his people northward into the land of Ararat. And it's very interesting when you think about the migration of Hayek going from Babylon to the north and the southern Caucasus of our Ararat. It's kind of familiar. But anyways, for more information on this legend and story and the mythology, or perhaps semi-truth and tradition of the Armenians, check out the Institute for Armenian Studies of Yavan State University. Excuse me for my mispronunciation, but it basically covers it. I just read some of it just now, but check this out for more understanding on the origins and the formation of the Armenian kingdom, because it does go deep into it. But now we're going to look at some deeper meanings behind this Armenian tradition of Hayek. So one of the greatest heroic epics of the Armenian peoples is the great cosmic epic of Hayek, the forefather and establisher of the first Armenian kingdom of Armenia in the 3rd millennium BC. The epic was written down by Moses of Coron, the father of Armenian history. Coron wrote down the epic in his History of Armenia in the 5th century from the oral tradition of the ancient troubadours. The epic story tells us of Hayek, the leader of the nation of Amrams or Armenians, of the original Indo-European homeland, where the solar cult of Orion originated and spread throughout the world. In the impregnable highlands of Armenia, the war king organizes the Armenians against the invading forces of the tyrant Bel of Babylon, attacking from south of Mesopotamia into the highlands of Ararat. The Great Armenian Calendar records in August 11, 2492 BC, as the day of the cosmic battle between the forces of the freedom-loving Armenian and the invading forces of Bel. The decisive battle takes place near the shores of Lake Van. Hayek fires a triple-headed broad bow from his longbow directly into the chest of Bel of Babylon. The ample arrow splits the breastplate of Bel, who mortally wounded fell to the ground. Bel's soldiers fled the battlefield after the death of their leader. Hayek calls on his kinsmen to unite into one single nation, the kingdom, in order to defeat and continue to cultivate and enrich the ancestral homeland. Hayek established a settlement, Hayekistan, which becomes a nucleus of the Armenian kingdom centered around Van. Hayek places his sons in charge of strategically important areas of Armenia to guard and prevent any further hostilities from foreign incursions into the land of Ararat. Hayek thought by some scholars to be a mythical Indo-European folk hero, which is fairly interesting. So this is from Ancient History Encyclopedia, Armenian Mythology, and it says, this is the story of Hayek and Bel, and places the origins of the Armenian people as the descendants of the biblical Noah via his son Japheth. Hayek, a descendant of Japheth and noted archer, hence his later association with Orion, rebelled one day against Bel, the evil and repressive Babylonian tyrant, and returned back to his homeland around Mount Ararat in ancient Armenia. Bel followed Hayek in his relations, so that a mighty battle followed in which Bel was killed. Hayek then gave his name to his descendants, the Hay people, and the name of the region of Armenia in the Armenian language, Hayasane. And this is from the Heritage of Armenian Literature, Volume 1. And it says, Hayek, the legendary archer, has been part of Armenian culture and history since time immemorial. Hayek is considered the patriarch of the Armenians, and it is indeed for this reason that Armenians call themselves Hay. The well-known epic of Hayek's battle against Bel provides subsequent proof that Hayek and his people stood up against Bel and halted the unrestrained influx of Semitic peoples from the south. And Bel, or Bel in Phoenician and Hebrew, was supreme Babylonian god of the earth and the atmosphere, and was called the god of the lords. So, from a genetic point of view, the story of Hayek may be true. DNA does show that around the time of the legend of Hayek, as well as the founding of Armenia, that the Armenian genome was sort of born around that time. This is from the New York Times, date of Armenia's birth, given in 5th century, gains credence. Moses of Coron, a historian in the 5th century, wrote that his native Armenia had been established in 2492 BC, which we read about earlier. But either he had a lucky guess or he really gained access to useful data, because a new genetic analysis suggests that his date was entirely plausible. Very interesting. This formative mixture occurred from 3000 to 2000 BC. The geneticists coincided with Moses of Coron's date for the founding of Armenia. Towards the end of the Bronze Age, when the mixture wasn't processed, there was considerable movements of people brought about with increased trade, warfare, and population growth. No significant mixing with other groups after that date can be detected in the genomes of living Armenians, the geneticists said. So here's actually the study that deals with it. Genetic evidence for an origin of the Armenians from Bronze Age mixing with multiple populations. So this story could give credence to Hayek, or, well, it does. This paper does give credence to Hayek. And of course, if the story of Hayek is true, then Armenians descending from Togarmah, son of Japheth, could also possibly be true. So let's read the study. The Armenians are a culturally isolated population who historically inhabited a region in the Near East, bounded by the Mediterranean and the Black Seas and the Caucasus, but remain underrepresented in genetic studies and have a complex history, including a major geographic displacement during World War I. We find that Armenians form a distinctive cluster linking the Near East, Europe, and the Caucasus. We show that Armenian diversity can be explained by several mixtures of Eurasian populations that occurred between 3000 and 2000 BCE, a period characterized by major population migrations after the domestication of the horse, appearance of chariots, and the rise of advanced civilizations in the Near East. However, genetic signals of population mixture cease after 1200 BCE, when Bronze Age civilizations in the Eastern Mediterranean world suddenly and violently collapsed. That's talking about the collapse of the late Bronze Age. But anyways, Armenians have since remained isolated in genetic structure within the population development 500 years ago, when Armenia was divided between the Ottomans and the Safavid Empire in Iran. Finally, we show that Armenians have higher genetic affinity to Neolithic Europeans than other present-day Near Easterners, and that 29% of Armenian ancestry may originate from an ancestral population that is best represented by Neolithic Europeans. So, insights into the human past come from diverse areas, including history, archaeological, linguistic, and increasingly genetics. The observed patterns of present day genetic diversity can be compared with models that include past population processes such as migration, divergence, and admixture, and the best model chosen. These models often require representing ancestral populations and mostly consider present day populations as direct descendants of the ancient inhabitants of a region. However, archaeological and genetic data reveal that human history has often been shaped by regional and localized population movements that could confound simple demographic models. Ancient DNA studies have also shown that the genetic landscape has been continuously shifting, possibly triggered by environmental and cultural transitions. ADNA, or ancient DNA, research is useful for understanding past demographic events. However, samples are limited, and obtaining ADNA, ancient DNA, from warm climates remains a challenge. We have previously shown that studying genetic isolates also provides insight into human genetic variation and past demographic events. For example, by studying Jews, Druze, and Christians from the Near East, we showed that the region had more genetic affinity to Europe 2,000 years ago than at present. In the present study, we investigate that the Armenians, a population today confined to the Caucasus, but who occupied eastern Turkey. They have also their own alphabet and language, which is classified as an independent branch of the Indo-European language family. The Armenian language is a subject of interest and debate among linguists for its distinctive phonological development within Indo-European languages and for its affinity to Balkan languages such as Greek and Albanian. And that's kind of interesting because I actually did a video connecting Greek, Armenian, Iranian, and Indian languages. You can check that video out, but it's interesting that they mention that. Now, continuing the reading, it says, the historical homeland of the Armenians sits north of the Fertile Crescent, a region of substantial importance to modern human evolution. Furthermore, Armenia's location may have been important for the spread of Indo-European languages, which we talked about extensively, since it is believed to encompass or be close to the Proto-Indo-European homeland, Anatolia or Pontic Steppe, from which the Indo-Europeans and their culture spread to Western Europe, Central Asia, and India. Here we investigate the information that can be obtained by genetic analysis of present-day Armenians and comparisons with other present-day and ancient samples. The position of the Armenians within the global genetic diversity appears to mirror the geographical location of Turkey, which forms a bridge connecting Europe, the Near East, and the Caucasus. It is believed to have been the origin, ancestral route for migrating Near Eastern farmers towards Europe during the Neolithic, and has probably also played a major role in the dispersal of the Indo-European languages. Armenians' adoption of a distinctive culture early in their history resulted in their genetic isolation from their surroundings. Their genetic resemblance today to other genetic isolates of the Near East, but not to most other Near Easterners, suggests that recent admixture has changed the genetic landscape in most populations in the region. Armenians' genetic diversity reveals that the ancient Near East had higher affinity to Neolithic Europe than it does now. Very interesting. Let me read that one more time, starting right here. Their genetic resemblance today to other genetic isolates in the Near East, but not to most other Near Easterners, suggests that recent admixture has changed the genetic landscape in most populations in the region. So, most populations in the Middle East seem to have changed. Furthermore, it says Armenians' genetic diversity reveals that the ancient Near East had higher affinity to Neolithic Europe than it does now. So ancient Near Easterners, there was populations that were closer to Europe than it is today. Interesting. And that Bronze Age demographic processes had a major impact on the genetics of populations in this region. Isolated populations are emerging as a powerful tool for many different genetic investigations, such as rare variant associations with complex phenotypes and the characterization of of gene environment interactions. So yes, this is why Armenians are very important, because the fact that they are an isolated genetic population, it kind of gives us an insight of, since they're genetically isolated, how were the ancient populations were. And it's very interesting to see that in the ancient Near East, there was basically Europeans present there, which makes sense with the whole Tower of Babel event, or if you don't believe in a young Earth, just makes sense in general with the idea of Japheth and Indo-Europeans originating in the South Caucasus and migrating basically into Anatolia and the Pontic Steppe. So this is very fascinating. So we know that Armenia, south of the Caucasus, was the likely homeland of the Indo-Europeans, which was heavily dominated by Haplogroup J in both ancient and modern times. The insight that the Caucasus Mountains served not only as a corridor for the spread of Caucasus hunter-gatherer / Neolithic Iranian ancestry, but also for later gene flow from the south, also has a bearing on the postulated homelands of Proto-Indo-European languages and documented gene flows that could have carried a consecutive spread of both across West Eurasia, perceiving the Caucasus as an occasional bridge rather than a strict border during the Neolithic and the Bronze Age opens up the possibility of a homeland of Proto-Indo-Europeans south of the Caucasus, which itself provides a parsimonious explanation for an early branching off of Anatolian languages. That was from Chan Cho Wang in his 2018 study, The Genetic Prehistory of the Greater Caucasus. And just to reiterate that J was there, around the time of the Neolithic demographic transition, the genome-wide ancestry of West Eurasian populations was geographically structured into three groups. Along them, Haplogroup J-M304 is found in the Caucasus / Iranian and Anatolian hunter-gatherers and farmers. And that was from origins and diffusion of human Y chromosome haplogroup J1-M267. Our analysis shows that the ancient populations of the Chalcolithic Iran, Chalcolithic Armenia, Bronze Age Armenia, and Chalcolithic Anatolia were all composed of the same ancestral components. That was from Genomic Insights into the Origins of Farming in the Ancient Near East. And just to reiterate one more time about J being in this region, reading only what's in yellow, the J1A1B-Z18375 branch is found overwhelmingly among ancient and modern populations from the Caucasus, the Armenian highland, Iran, and Anatolia. This branch constitutes the aforementioned peak of haplogroup J1-M267 frequency in the Northeast Caucasus. Haplogroup J1-M267 were found among populations living in the Caucasus and neighboring regions. And our Bayesian continuous phylogenetic analysis suggests that suggests the origin of haplogroup J1-M267 in Western Asia, confirming previous assumptions. Most of the deeply diverged lineages belong to the population from the northern latitudes of the region, in line with the findings of the late Pleistocene hunter-gatherer from the South Caucasus. Our analysis provides a better statistical confidence for the origin of haplogroup J1-M267 in the area encompassing the Caucasus, the Armenian highland, and the Zagros Mountains. So, haplogroup J it likely could belong to Torgarmah, the son of Japheth, that settled in the South Caucasus, becoming the ancestor of the people such as the Armenians, who have a tradition of descending from Hayek, who is the son of Togarmah. DNA also seems to match the story of the Armenian legend of Hayek and its founding. Therefore, Torgarmah is likely the ancestor of Armenians. And here's just a Bible map of Torgarmah being in the Greater Armenia, which is south of the Caucasus. And here is haplogroup J, which would have been in that region. It's likely that Torgarmah was the man who carried J. If Torgarmah descendants are the Armenians, so now let's sort of get into the phenotype. If Torgarmah's descendants are in fact Armenians, then their phenotype would be Armenoid. It will be the Armenoid types. So just to familiarize yourselves again, Armenoid, short-headed and high-skulled type with fleshy features, a flat occiput and a hooked nose, often black-haired with light brown skin, common in the regions of Asia Minor, especially Armenia and Anatolia, which is what we're dealing with when it comes to geography. And specifically dealing with the Armenid, which is literally an Armenian, a widespread type found in its most specialized form in the mountains of Asia Minor, associated with the ancient Cretans and the Hittite kingdom, common in Armenians, Turks of the mountain ranges. And I'm not going to read all the other places, but just going to go to phenotype, physical traits: light brown skin, wavy, dark brown hair, and hyperbrachicocephalic. And I'll let you just look at the image of where you typically find it. So this is likely what the descendants of Torgarmah, both the early Torgarmahites and what the modern descendants of Torgarmah would look like, the Armenians. This is Armenian people. They have light to tan skin. They have dark hair, dark eyes, and they also have what seems to be more of a round, skulled type, and their noses do seem to be a bit aquiline, but they do have a particular type of feature about them. The Armenians are the descendants of Togarmah. Tan to white skin, dark brown hair, and as well as dark brown eyes. So this is where we end Torgarmah, son of Gomer, Armenians, and Anatolians. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe, click the bell, and share it. If you have any questions, leave a comment down below. Follow my social media accounts that I mentioned at the beginning of the video if you want to contact me. And with all of that out of the way, have a great day and shalom.